Good morning and welcome to our Masterclass mini session on creating dashboards in Excel. Now, my name is Catherine Wilson and I will be your moderator for this morning's session, and I will also be a point of contact at Masterclass should you wish to contact myself or John after this session. Now, it's great to have so many of you on the session with us this morning, so you will be in a listen-only mode. However, you can send us your questions and comments through the questions panel on your dashboard, and we will do our very best to answer as many of them as we can. Now, we would really like it if you could tweet your attendance to today's session. Just use the hashtag with Masterclass Minis so we can track them all. And also, please do follow us on Twitter, as we'll be tweeting further sessions and useful giveaways. Now, so you may ask, why are we doing these Masterclass Minis? Well, there are two specific reasons for us delivering this session today. Really, one is, to share our tips, techniques and tools with you, a value add to all our clients and also fellow learning and development personnel. And also an opportunity for us to showcase Masterclass, because we would love the opportunity to work with you. So if you see anything today that you think would work well, as either virtual classrooms or face-to-face training or coaching, then please get in touch. It'd be great to hear from you. And lastly, we do have a special offer, which I will inform you all about at the end of the session. So, with John, the facilitator, John and I, we've been working together for many years now, and he has actually he's even trained me on both Word and Excel in my career. The way I would describe John's sessions are useful, full of tips and tricks, engaging, and definitely not dry and boring. So John, he's a Microsoft Office Master Instructor and an award-winning training facilitator. And he's recently been on the BBC television show, The Fixer, if anyone's seen that. So enough from me, and over to you, John.
Thank you very much, Catherine, and a very, very, very good morning to everybody. And you're very welcome to today's webinar, Creating Dashboards in Excel, the easy way for what is, well, it's now a gorgeous morning here in London. It was a little bit wet earlier, but it's lovely now. So thanks for that, Catherine, and straight in we're going to be having a look at laying out your work in the first instance. There's just one Excel function that we're going to use today called Count Ifs. We're going to have a look at how you can turn your data into charts and tables, add some conditional formatting, and also making your dashboard interactive. So basically, what we want to do is imagine that you're creating this, but you're probably not going to be the person who's going to be using it. So you're creating it, but somebody else is going to be the person who's operating it. Now, a note about our data. So a couple of things about our data. First of all, I'm going to jump straight into Excel in a couple of moments. And firstly, all the data that's in Excel is completely fictitious. So anybody who looks like somebody you know, well, it's coincidental. And the second thing is that this workbook will be available after today's session. So if you would like to practice, then we're making the workbook available as well afterwards. So you can download that and practice away. And we really would like you to do that and take up that opportunity as well. So that's a little bit about what we're actually going to be doing. This is what we're going to end up with. So a dashboard can have many, many, many different things. For ours today, we're going to have a table. We're going to have some conditional formatting, we're going to have a chart, and also then, as I say, we're going to make it interactive. So we're going to have a look at how you can use data validation as well. So here's what it looks like in Excel itself. So I've just switched to my Excel, and I can click on a little drop down here because we've made it interactive. And as I choose elements from the drop down, then I should see my dashboard reacts accordingly. So as I'm going through the session, if you can try and imagine your data in Excel. Your data in Excel normally just consists of columns, and some of them have text, and some of them have numbers in them. Maybe some of them have dates. Maybe you've got training records. Maybe you've done a survey. So here's my data and what it looks like. So they're intended to be kids in a school. So as I said, it is completely fictitious. And so I've got fields like grades that they got in a recent exam and free school meals. So maybe in your data you've got training records of yes, they've attended, no, they haven't. Maybe you've got scores and you want to count all the fives, etc. like that. So as we're going through, try and imagine how you might employ this with your particular spreadsheet. So in mine, I might want to count how many of the kids got an A. And I might want to say, right, is there any correlation between the kids who got A and whether they get free school meals or not? And maybe I want to see if there's any relationship between ethnic group, free school meals, and the results they get in exams. So this is essentially the idea. So here's our completed dashboard once again for you. So we've got our ethnic group up here. And then I've got what grades they achieved, and whether they get free school meals or not, and how the relationship between ethnic group, free school meals, and the results they got in exams. So to start off with now, I'm going to ask Catherine to run our first poll, if I might. Catherine, I wonder, would you mind to queue up the first poll for me, please?
Okay, yeah, this is, how would you describe your knowledge of Excel? Oh, right. They're fast on their buttons today. Okay, those votes are still coming in because there's a lot on the webinar, John.
Cool. Yep.
So,
just give it another moment. So we hate to pigeonhole people, but it's useful for us to just get an idea for future webinars and things like that. So it's just a handy thing. Right. Shall we close it off, Catherine?
Okay. There we go.
Excellent stuff.
Results.
What have you got for me?
So we have 31% basic, 57% intermediate, and 12% advanced.
Excellent stuff. Okay, thanks a million for that. Okay, so if you just want to close that off for me. Now, a couple of points that I want to make about that, and one of the reasons why I run that poll is that if you put yourself down as basic, you might find this a little bit quick. And if you find it a bit quick, well, we are recording it as well. So in addition to downloading the workbook afterwards, then Catherine will share a link with you if you get in touch with her for the recording. So if you put in basic on that and you're finding it's a bit quick, then don't worry, because we are recording it anyway. So to start with, then I want to actually type in here grades. And I want my grades to be A, B, C, D, and I think there was some E's in it as well, okay? So I'm just going to type in here A, B, C, D, and E. And I want Excel to count how many of the kids in my next sheet. So the next sheet along is my pupils sheet. So how many of the ones got an A, B, C, D, or E? So I'm going to start to type in here equals count, and I'm going to choose a count if. Now it tells me here in the little bit of text that this counts the number of cells within a range that meet a given condition. So that sounds like a plan. So we've got to have that one. And off I go to my pupils, and I'm going to actually choose the whole column, because it might be that people keep adding to your data. And if that is the case, then, well, you don't really want to be coming back and editing your dashboard every single time somebody adds a couple of rows of data. So we're going to select the whole thing, and then I'm going to put in a comma, and I'm going to open up some speech marks, and I can just type in A. And then I'm going to close the speech marks again. Now, it's not really case sensitive, so it doesn't matter whether it's uppercase or lowercase. And when I press enter, then Excel goes through that, and it counts how many of the people got an A, B, or sorry, in this case, just the A. Now, I'm going to edit my formula again, so I'm going to take out the bit about the A, so that worked okay. And instead, I'm going to link it to this cell here. Now, when I press enter, I essentially get the same thing. So I get 25. And now I'm just going to fill that down. And that goes through and now counts all of the kids who got an A, B, C, D, or E. Right. Now, going back to my original again. So this is basically what we've just done. And we've added in my original one the possibility to make it interactive. So the first thing that I want to do is add in ethnic group into that. So I'm going to come up here and type in ethnic group. Okay. Right. And now from here, then I can go back to my pupils, and I'm going to copy the whole lot. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the whole of the ethnic group. And I'm going to go back to my step 1 over here, and I'm going to paste it in here. So these are going to be the options that I'm going to get. So from my drop-down list, the first thing I do is copy the whole lot. Now what I want to do is make them unique entries though. So I'm going to go to the Data tab, and I'm just going to choose to remove the duplicates. So that now goes through and gives me a unique entry for each one. So I can see that I now have 4 different categories in terms of ethnic group. So I want to be able to put those in here. So I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to go to the Data tab, and I'm going to choose Data Validation. So data validation allows me to restrict access to the cell. Now in this case, the default is for it to be any value, but we're going to change that because we want to offer people a list. So we're going to click on the little drop down and choose List. So now I'm going to click in the source, and I'm just going to go over and highlight the African and Asian and mixed race ones that I copied across earlier on. So as soon as I choose OK, then I now see that I've got a little drop down here, and I can choose various different ethnic groups from there. So how did I do that? Well, I did that by using data validation. So I'm just going to go through that again. So from the Data tab, I choose Data Validation. And this time, I'm going to go for an input message. And I'm going to click down here in the body of the message, and I'm going to type in here, please choose from the list. Please choose from the list. So now when I choose OK, then I should see that I get a little drop down here with those in it. So now I'm going to go back to my data validation again. And this time I'm going to choose the 3rd tab across the top, Error Alert. And I'm going to type in my own name in the top here. So I'm going to type in here, John's dashboard. Right. And I can put in my own error message as well. So please choose from list. So now when I choose OK, then firstly I see a little tooltip here that gives people a prompt as to what I expect them to do. And also then, if I just type in something like, I don't know anything at all, I'm just going to type in Dublin. And when I press enter, then I should notice I get that error message. So the idea behind the data validation is you can check the information on the way in. And you can control that, and you can put in a tooltip and then an error alert as well. So now I want to tie that to my earlier formula that I did over here, because I want to make this interactive. So I got to edit my formula over here, and I'm going to make this count ifs. So I'm just going to put in an S there after the count if, and I'm going to make it plural. So these turned up in Office 2007. So if you're in one of the older versions, then you can't use this particular function. You have to go about it a slightly different way. And I'm going to click just inside the last bracket and put in a comma. And I'm going to go back to my pupils. And I'm going to choose ethnic group this time. I'm going to choose the whole column. Because again, you know, I might be adding more information to it afterwards. And I'm going to open up some speech marks and just type in the word Asian. And then I'm going to close the speech marks and press enter. This is just to confirm that the formula is actually working in the first instance. So that all seems to be okay, at least the figure changed. So I'm now going to edit my function again to just take out the last bit at the end, and I'm going to reference this cell up here instead. So now Excel is going to count all the ones where the grade says A, and the ethnic group matches whatever I've got in function key 3. Now I want to make that an absolute reference because I'm going to actually fill that down. So when I press enter, and now I go back and I fill that down, then that should now go through and count all the people who've got an A, B, C, D, or E, and their ethnic group matches whatever I've picked up here. And just to check that that's all okay, then I can click on the little drop down up here, and I'm going to change that to choose White British, and then I should see that this all changes accordingly, and indeed it does. Right, so basically this is where we're up to at the moment. So we've put in our interactivity from here, and you can see that it's already reacted, and it's counting the grades that are relevant. So the next bit that I want to focus on is the school meals bit down here towards the bottom corner. So that's the next bit we're going to do. So on my dashboard, again, I'm just going to type in here, meals. Now, there's only really two options for these, so you either, well, you can have them or you can't, really. So I'm going to put in here yes, and then no. And going across to the right, then I just want them going A, B, C, D as well the same way. So I'm going to use my count function again here to count how many of the ones have free school meals that says yes, grades that says A, and ethnic group that matches whatever I've got in this cell up here, F3. So we start in exactly the same way as we did a moment ago. So we go equals count, and I'm going to use count ifs in the plural, okay, because we've got multitude that we're actually going to do. So the first thing that I'm going to do is back to my data, and I'm going to choose the free school meals. Again, I'm going to select the whole column in case it changes, and I'm going to put in a comma. Now, the last time I typed in yes, no, well, we could do that again if you want to. Or I could just click on the word yes here, whichever, doesn't really matter. Comma. Now the next thing that we want to do is the grades, okay, so back we go to our pupils again, and we're going to select the column that's got all the grades in it. And again, I'm just going to type in comma, and I want that to match whatever I've got here, so in this case, A, comma, last one, okay? So the last one we got to do is ethnic group. So off I go again to my pupils, and I'm just going to choose again the whole of column J this time. And then I'm going to put in a comma, and I want to make sure that that's going to be referenced against whatever I've put up here in F3. Right, so when I press enter now, then that should go through and count all of those. So there's actually one person in the file who matches all those criteria. So I can go back up here to my little drop down now, and I can click on the drop down, and if I change it, then I can see here African. Well, there are two that match all three criteria. So there's two that match the criteria of African, and they got an A in the exam, and they get free school meals as well. Now I'm going to actually expand that out across all the rest of that table down at the bottom. But while I'm doing that, I'm just going to ask Catherine, if you wouldn't mind, Catherine, just to queue up the second poll for me, please.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So a few moments ago, then I mentioned that this function was new in Office 2007. So if you can run the poll for me, Catherine, please.
Okay. So it's really which version of Excel do you use most frequently?
Yep.
There we go. 2007, 10, 13. Excel for Mac, or really, I haven't got a clue. That
Right.
would be me.
Yeah, or I guess possibly an older version as well. So this function is introduced in 2007. Now, one other thing while we're doing because I know we have got a few people to get through today. While that's running, then coming up, Catherine mentioned at the start, if you find you do learn a lot from these and they're quite useful, then we're doing a longer one at the end of the month, which is an hour. That's completely interactive, and it's backed up by a workbook as well. So I've got everything you ever wanted to know about pivot tables. So if you've created, or you all wondered what is a pivot table, people keep going on about them. Or actually, if you've created pivot tables and you're wondering if there's something you missed. So we've got a few coming up. Pivot tables is one, macros is another one. I love delivering that. It's really useful. So it's a power hour, really. Everything you'd ever want to know about macros. And also some auditing and some VLOOKUPs and things like that. So watch out for those webinars. I think Catherine's got a special that she's going to talk about at the end. But if you find this works for you today, then I definitely check those ones out as well. So how are we doing on the poll, Catherine?
Right, okay, I'll close and I'll share the results. So 13% is 2007, 56 2010, 27% 2013, 1% on the Mac, and 3% I really don't know.
Right, excellent, and thank you. I really appreciate the honesty of the 3% of the people who said, I haven't got a clue, John. Right, but that's absolutely fine. So as long as it's 2007 or newer, really, you should be able to use this technique. Right, so the next thing we want to do is add a splash of color to this, okay? So I'm going to start by just, in the normal way, just formatting a few of these cells. So I'm just going to highlight them, and maybe I'll change the background color of some of these or something like that, just to add a little bit of emphasis, or maybe even the opposite, really. And once I've done that, then you might have noticed there was something called conditional formatting, right? Conditional formatting. Now, the idea behind the conditional formatting, it came in Office 2007. Now, I'm going to highlight these cells, and I'm going to go conditional formatting, data bars. And as I hover over each one of these, then it gives me a preview, so I can see what that would be like before I actually select it. So I'm going to go for the first one today. And again, I'm just going to check to see if it's working. So I'm going to click on my little tab here. Oh, for some reason I've switched sheet and the data validation is gone. So let me just get that back. So I've got to go back to the other one and copy these. Okay, and we're going to paste them over here. So I'm going to re-put that in because I put a change sheet. Right, so from the data tab, data validation. Where's he gone to? There he is. Change it to a list. Click on the source, and away we go. Oops, missed. More hurry, less speed. There you go. Right, so I should now say that if I click on the little drop down, then my conditional formatting reacts accordingly. There's not that much of a difference in the figures. Oh, there, that's a bit better. And I want to do the same thing with this table down here. So I'm going to highlight the table down at the bottom with the free school meals in it. And I'm going to go to the Home tab. And from the Home tab, I'm going to choose Conditional Formatting. And again, I'm going to use color scales this time. And as I hover over each one, then it gives me a preview of what it's going to look like. I'm just going to choose the default. I'm going to pick the first one. And again, just to check to see that it's working okay, then I use my interactivity like that. Right, now next thing that I want to do is add in that chart that you saw. So I'm going to highlight my data, and from the Insert tab, then I'm going to choose a pie chart today. So I'm going to go for 3D Exploded Pie. There you go, it's quite a title, that. 3D Exploded Pie. So I'm going to insert one of those charts into my dashboard. I'm just going to resize it a little bit so it kind of fits with everything else. And while I'm at it, well, I could do a little bit of formatting with it. Actually, it's not too bad the way it is, really. So I'm just going to change, again, some of these ethnic groups so I can see that the chart is reacting as well. Right, now the next thing I want to do is get rid of those grid lines. So I'm going to go to the View tab. And from the View tab, then I'm just going to switch the grid lines off. And that just gives the whole thing a cleaner look. Okay, so I've just got a plain white background. And I like to bring the whole lot together. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, and I'm going to draw a box around the whole thing. So I'm going to use a rounded rectangle like that. So now I've brought the whole lot together by drawing the box around it. But the shape fill, well, I'm going to change the shape fill to no fill, and then I can see the information that's in the background. Right. Let me just check to see where we're up to. That's absolutely fine.
Actually, John, can I just ask you a question?
Yes, of course you can.
Can the dashboard be imported to PowerPoint?
Yes, absolutely. It won't be interactive when you do that. Okay, so if I just very quickly switch back to my PowerPoint for a moment. So this is our slides that we're using at the moment. The easiest way probably of doing that is to give yourself a new slide. Okay, I'm going to go for a blank one. So I'm just going to give myself a new blank slide. And from the Insert tab, then I can just choose Screenshot and Screen Clipping. And when I choose Screenshot and Screen Clipping, then that takes me off to my dashboard. And I can now just take a copy of that and pop it into my slide. So I've now taken a copy of that from Excel and I've popped it, so I'm back in PowerPoint. So I've just done that by going to the Insert tab, Screenshot and Screen Clipping. And that's the easiest way to just grab the whole lot and put it into your PowerPoint slide.
Oh, thank you.
Is that right? Okay?
Yeah.
Right. So one of the other things that I wanted to point out about that is, let me just go back to my PowerPoint presentation, see how I'm doing at the moment. Okay, so, yep, excellent. So, 5, here we go. Right, so in all of what I've done so far, there is really just one function, the count ifs. A chart, some data validation, and conditional formatting. Here's how I did it. The count if function in itself, so you go equals count ifs in the plural, and then you have range, so meals, and then criteria, yes or no, and then grades, A, etc. To pop in the pie chart, I just went insert and pie, and I went for a 3D exploded pie. And to do the data validation, then I just went to the data tab, and I chose data validation. And I chose a list today. Now, before I actually hand you back to Catherine, I wanted to just show you a couple of other ones of these that are quite handy as well. So I'm just going to see if I can dig out some more examples today. So, yep, here we go. Don't limit yourself to what I've shown you today. Try different things. There's loads of ways in which you can actually use these kinds of dashboards. I'm not actually sure what you'd call these, so I call them Tetris, but I think they're useful. I saw these at a Microsoft exhibition. I'm sure they won't mind me sharing this with you, but they're really, really useful as a great way of showing information. I mentioned an upcoming webinar on pivot tables, but you can actually create pivot table dashboards as well. And these are quite clever and a lot easier as well. So if you can join me for that one, then I'm definitely going to cover off how you can create a pivot table dashboard. And Catherine mentioned at the start a little bit of work I did for the BBC on a program called The Fixer with Alex Polizzi. And this is the kind of stuff that we were looking at on that. And it was a shop in the East End of London, and it was sales over the key selling period of October, November, December. So there's loads of different ways in which you can create the dashboard, and it really is down to you. So I hope that I've inspired you to create some stunning visualizations of the data. I'm going to hand you back to Catherine because I'm almost out of time to look at any of the questions that we got and close off for us. So over to you, Catherine.
Okay, I got this question here. What are the Tetris graphs called in Excel?
Well, there aren't any. You have to make them up. Okay, so you actually have to make them up, and it's a similar type of idea to the stuff that we've been doing. So when we go on site, Catherine, when we have more time basically, right, then we can look at those kinds of things. You can't do those in a webinar, but so there isn't a chart called Tetris, but you use the techniques like I was showing you today with the conditional formatting and the counts and that kind of stuff to make the cell color change.
Okay, many thanks. So on the screen now is the dates of John's upcoming webinars, the 21st of April and the 27th of April. And more information you can contact will be available on our website. And our offer, yes, to all of you who've joined us this morning, if you sign up to both the webinars, you'll receive the second one half price. So do email me or call me after this webinar, really to guarantee that place, as you know, the bookings are limited, as John said, because it's an hour long and it is very interactive. You've got your questions, we're working with you, and it works extremely well. If you're not available, or there's more than one of you maybe, you know, it's a company, get in contact with me, because, you know, John comes in and does, you know, face-to-face workshops, you know, on small groups, you know, so you can really practice and you can really embed that knowledge. It's very individual. So there's a lot of ideas for you there. Just before you do go, if you could complete our exit survey, it would be great, because that really does help us put together what you want to see really in our future webinars. So I'll keep my details up on the screen here. And I would like to say a big thank you for John for a very informative webinar and this morning, and thank you all for joining us, and look forward to being with you next week with some of you on our 2 webinars. As we said, the macros in Excel on the 21st of April and the pivot tables explained on the 27th, but getting quick for our offer. Buy one, second one, half price. Okay, well, many thanks, and again some lovely comments in for you, John. Many thanks, very useful. So many thanks for you, John.
Excellent. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye.